Hey everyone, ready to dive into something pretty interesting. We're going deep on avocados today, but not the usual stuff.
Yeah, we're going way past just, guacamole and avocado toast. This is about what avocados can actually do in the body.
We've got some serious science to unpack here.
Oh, yeah, we're talking blood work.
Our source material for this one is a YouTube video from Dr. Sten Ekberg.
And, well, his experiment is pretty wild.
He ate 100 servings of avocado
In just 10 days.
and then got detailed blood tests done before and after.
So what we're looking at here is what really happens to your body when you go all in on avocado, like measurable changes.
This isn't just theory, it's looking at the actual data.
Exactly. And this is pretty rare, actually. We hear all the time about how certain foods are good for you, but we don't often get this level of specific insight.
Right, like how does it actually affect your blood sugar or your cholesterol? This video gives us some answers.
It really does. So the video starts off with some basic stuff about avocados.
Like how it actually berries, which always blows my mind.
That's always a fun fact to share, for sure. But let's get to the part that I found really fascinating, the avocado versus apple comparison.
Oh, yeah. That was a good one. Because we're always told an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Right.
Exactly. But when Dr. Ekberg breaks it down, and nutritionally speaking, apples and avocados are actually really different.
On the surface, they kind of seem similar, I guess.
They both have carbs, that's true, but that's where the similarities end.
So where do things diverge?
Well, avocados have a massive amount of fiber, like 4 times the fiber of an apple. And because of that, they have way fewer net carbs.
Okay, now remind me, what are net carbs again?
Net carbs are basically the carbs that get absorbed and used quickly for energy, the kind that can spike your blood sugar.
Oh, right. So we want to keep those net carbs low, right?
Generally speaking, yeah. And apples actually have 7 times more net carbs than avocados.
Whoa. Okay, that's a big difference.
And here's the kicker. Apples have a crazy 41 times more sugar than avocados.
41 times. Okay, wow. I mean, I love apples, but that puts things in a whole new perspective.
It really does. And this is not about demonizing apples, of course. It's just about understanding that not all fruits are created equal.
Right, and making informed choices about what we're eating and why. Like, if I'm looking for a snack that's going to keep my blood sugar stable and keep me full for longer, avocado's the clear winner.
Definitely. And that high fiber content plays a big role in that feeling of fullness.
Okay, so we've covered the apple-avocado showdown, but now let's get to the really exciting stuff. The blood work.
Oh, yeah, this is where it gets interesting.
What happened to his blood sugar after eating all those avocados?
Well, his glucose levels, the standard blood sugar measurement, stayed within a healthy range. But the more important marker to look at here is hemoglobin A1C.
Okay, I've heard of that, but remind me, what is hemoglobin A1C?
Think of it as like a long-term snapshot of your blood sugar control over the past few months. It gives a more complete picture than just a one-time glucose reading.
Got it. So what happened to his HbA1c after all those avocados?
It stayed steady at 5.3, which is well within the optimal range.
So even with this massive avocado intake, his long-term blood sugar control wasn't negatively affected.
Exactly. It actually suggests that avocados might not cause those blood sugar spikes that some people worry about.
That's good news for avocado lovers, but wait, there's even more to the blood sugar story, right?
Oh, there's more, all right. His insulin levels actually improved slightly, going from 4.2 to 3.9.
Now, insulin, I know that's important, but just remind me, why does this change matter?
Think of insulin as the key that unlocks your cells to let glucose in for energy.
Right.
When your body becomes resistant to insulin, it's like that lock is getting rusty, it can't open as easily, and that can lead to all sorts of problems like weight gain and even type 2 diabetes.
So basically, the avocados might have made his body better at using insulin.
That's exactly what the data suggests. Improved insulin sensitivity, which is a huge win for overall metabolic health.
Wow, okay, that's pretty amazing. So avocados are good for blood sugar control, and they might even improve insulin sensitivity. Anything else we need to know about his blood work before we move on?
Oh, yeah, we've still got to talk about inflammation.
All right, bring on the inflammation insights. What does his blood work say about that?
Well, he looked at a couple of key inflammatory markers. First, there's hsCRP, which is like a general measure of inflammation in the body.
Okay.
And get this, after the avocado experiment, his hsCRP dramatically decreased from 0.83 to 0.22.
Whoa, that's a big drop. So avocados actually helped reduce inflammation.
That's what the results show, yeah. And it's likely due to the monounsaturated fats in avocados, similar to the ones found in olive oil, which are known to have anti-inflammatory effects.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like those healthy fats are calming things down inside the body.
Exactly. And there's another inflammation marker he looked at, homocysteine.
Right? And how did his homocysteine levels change?
They stayed relatively stable, which is still a positive sign.
Why is that?
Because high homocysteine can actually be a risk factor for heart disease, so keeping it in check is important.
Interesting. I also remember from some of my reading that we need certain B vitamins to process homocysteine properly, which makes me think about the overall nutrient contents of avocados. But before we get into all that good stuff, there's one big question that a lot of people have about avocados. What about cholesterol?
Ah, yes, the cholesterol question. Doesn't all that fat in avocados raise cholesterol levels?
That's what a lot of people think. So what did Dr. Ekberg's blood work show?
Well, he went above and beyond the basic cholesterol panel. Instead of just looking at total cholesterol, LDL, and HDL, he got into the nitty-gritty of LDL particle size and number.
Hold on, LDL particle size. Now I'm curious. What's that all about?
It's kind of a deeper dive into cholesterol. Think of it this way. Imagine LDL cholesterol as little packages traveling through your bloodstream. You can have a lot of small, dense packages or fewer, larger, fluffier ones.
Okay, I'm picturing it. And is one type worse than the other?
You got it. Those small, dense LDL particles are the troublemakers. They're more likely to get stuck in your arteries and contribute to plaque buildup.
Oh, I see.
The larger, fluffier ones are less of a concern.
So it's not just about how much LDL you have, but also the type of LDL. Mind blown.
Precisely. And that's what makes Dr. Ekberg's results so interesting. After his avocado experiment, his total in LDL cholesterol actually went down slightly. But here's the key takeaway.
Okay, I'm all ears.
His LDL particle number significantly decreased from 1232 to 919. And the percentage of those bad, small, dense LDL particles went down too, from 29% to 19%.
So he had fewer of the bad cholesterol packages and more of the good ones. That's incredible. Is that all due to the avocados?
It seems that way. It looks like all those avocados shifted his cholesterol profile in a healthier direction. And that's likely due to those healthy fats and their impact on inflammation, which we talked about earlier.
Avocados really are little health heroes, aren't they? We've covered blood sugar, inflammation, and cholesterol, all with positive results.
It's pretty impressive. But there's one more fascinating point that Dr. Ekberg brings up in his video. Avocados might actually mimic some aspects of a fasting mimicking diet.
Whoa, hold on. Avocados and fasting. Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
It's really interesting. It's all about those avocados and potentially mimicking fasting, which is pretty fascinating.
Okay, so last time we were talking about this idea that avocados could potentially mimic some of the effects of a fasting mimicking diet, or FMD. And I'm like dying to know more.
Right. We were about to get into those potential benefits of an FMD and how avocados might actually fit into that picture.
So what's the deal with these FMDs? Why would someone want to mimic fasting?
Well, you see, there's a lot of research on fasting that has shown some really incredible potential benefits.
Like what kind of benefits are we talking about here?
Well, things like cellular repair, improved insulin sensitivity, and even boosted brain function. There's a whole range of potential benefits.
Wow, that's quite a list. But actually, fasting sounds pretty intense. Is an FMD a way to kind of get some of those benefits without going to such extremes?
That's exactly it. With an FMD, you're not completely abstaining from food. You're really just drastically reducing your calorie intake for a very specific period of time.
Like how long are we talking?
Usually just a few days, and you focus on foods that won't spike your blood sugar or your insulin levels.
Oh, okay, so that's where the avocado connection comes in.
That's it. Dr. Ekberg was suggesting that eating, say, 3 to 4 avocados a day might actually align with these FMD principles.
Okay, I'm still a little fuzzy on how that actually works.
Well, remember when we talked about the salary and macronutrient numbers he gave? Based on his 100 avocado experiment, he estimated that each day he was consuming around 868 calories. And out of those, only 10 grams were protein, 35 grams were fiber, and just 10 grams were net carbs. And then on top of that, only 1.5 grams were sugar.
Right, and the majority of those calories were coming from healthy fats, like about 80 grams a day, if I remember correctly.
You got it. So it's super low in calories and protein, minimal in those net carbs and sugar, and relatively high in those good healthy fats, which, all align with those principles of an FMD.
So by primarily eating avocados, you're keeping your calorie intake really low, and you're also avoiding those blood sugar spikes that would kind of interrupt that whole fasting mimicking process.
Exactly. But it's important to mention, this isn't saying that just eating avocados is exactly the same as doing a true water fast.
Right, of course.
Because there are definitely differences in those physiological processes.
Yeah, of course, of course. So it's more about kind of tapping into some of those potential benefits of fasting in a more manageable way.
Exactly. But, before we all rush out and buy a ton of avocados, it's also important to emphasize that this is, just a theory based on one person's experiment.
Right.
More research is definitely needed to confirm all of these findings, but it's definitely a super fascinating idea for our listeners to explore further, especially if they're interested in the potential benefits of fasting, but are looking for a gentler way to ease into it.
Absolutely. And as always, it's a good idea to talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian before making any major dietary changes. But I think this whole avocado experiment speaks to a larger point that Dr. Ekberg made about our lifestyle choices and how much they can really impact our health.
Oh, he was very strong on that point, especially what we eat.
Right.
He emphasized that even though we all have, certain genetic predispositions, our daily choices can dramatically influence how those genes are actually expressed.
It's like we have more power than we realize to kind of shape our own health destiny.
It's not just about accepting what our genes, supposedly dictate for us. We can actually make choices that shift things in a positive direction, and sometimes even in a matter of days.
That's super empowering. And Dr. Ekberg's avocado experiment is a perfect example of that. Like, he made this drastic dietary change for only 10 days and saw measurable shifts in his blood work. It's pretty remarkable. It really is. It's a good reminder that we're not just passive passengers in this whole journey of health.
We have agency, and those choices we make, they really do matter.
I like that. We have agency. It's a good reminder.
And remember, this is just one example. There are so many other foods and dietary patterns out there that are just waiting to be explored.
Speaking of exploring, we haven't even touched on all the amazing nutrients in avocados. I mean, beyond those healthy fats, of course. Remember all those impressive numbers from his blood work, like the vitamins and minerals?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in those 10 days of eating mostly avocados, he got remarkable amounts of those essential vitamins and minerals.
Can you give us some examples?
Oh, sure. From the avocados alone, he got 51% of his daily vitamin C, 33% of his vitamin B1, 57%, which is a lot of vitamin B2, and then a whopping 115% of his vitamin B6 needs.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like a nutritional treasure chest. And it's not just the vitamins, right? What about minerals?
You're right. His avocado intake also gave him 38% of his daily magnesium, 40% of his phosphorus, and then an impressive 77% of his potassium needs.
Wow, that's truly amazing. It really makes you realize that avocados are so much more than just a source of healthy fats. They're packed with all these nutrients that support a whole range of bodily functions.
Exactly. They're like these tiny little nutrient powerhouses that can really contribute to a healthy diet.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to add more avocados to my meals. But before I go on an avocado shopping spree, I think it's a good idea to pause and recap what we've learned so far.
Sounds like a good plan.
We started by comparing avocados to apples and kind of debunking that myth that an apple a day is, all you need for good health.
Right, and then we went deep into the fascinating world of blood work. We saw how Dr. Ekberg's blood sugar, those inflammatory markers, and even his cholesterol profile all shifted in a positive direction after just 10 days of the avocado experiment.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. We also explored the concept of those fasting-mimicking diets and how avocados might actually help us tap into some of those benefits, which I think is a really interesting idea.
It is. And then, of course, we uncovered that amazing nutrient density of avocados, highlighting all those vitamins and minerals.
It's clear that avocados are nutritional powerhouses, that's for sure. But beyond all the scientific details, I think the biggest takeaway here is that we really do have more power over our health than we think.
I totally agree. Our choices, especially when it comes to food, can make a real difference.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener, for sure, but I feel like there's still more to unpack. In the final part of our avocado exploration, I'm really eager to hear your expert insights on what all this means for us, the listeners. Like, what can we actually take away from this and apply to our own lives? Welcome back to the final part of our avocado adventure. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it?
It has. From blood work to nutrients to fasting mimicking. I mean, who knew there was so much to say about avocados?
Right. And now I think it's time to kind of bring it all home. What does all this mean for our listeners? Like, what can they actually take away from this deep dive and apply to their own lives?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Should we all be trying to eat like 100 avocados in 10 days like Dr. Ekberg did?
I don't think my grocery budget could handle that.
Yeah, mine either. But seriously, this deep dive wasn't really about, prescribing a specific diet or anything like that.
Right.
It was more about showing people the power of like making informed food choices and really understanding how those choices can impact our bodies.
Exactly. It's not about dogma. It's about empowerment. It's not about blindly following someone else's experiment. It's about taking those insights and applying them to our own unique situations.
I like that it's about finding what works for you. And I think the key takeaway here is that even small changes in our diet can have a big ripple effect on our health. Dr. Ekberg's experiment was obviously pretty extreme.
100 avocados, yeah.
But it really highlights that we have more control over our well-being than we might realize.
It's like a call to action. to really pay attention to what we're eating and how it makes us feel.
Absolutely. This deep dive is an invitation to become more mindful, I guess, not in a restrictive way, but just in a way that makes you curious.
Curious about our food.
Yeah. Like what happens when you swap out your usual snack for an avocado? How does that make you feel? How's your energy, your digestion, your mood?
It's about tuning into those subtle signals that our body is always giving us.
And remember, this is just one example. There are so many other foods and dietary approaches out there. What other experiments could you do in your own life?
Oh, that's such a good question. Like maybe you're curious about reducing sugar or trying fermented foods. What happens when you change things up?
Exactly. You could even keep a food journal and write down not just what you eat, but how you feel afterward.
Like, I felt great after that salad, or, that pasta made me feel so sluggish.
Exactly. You could even get some blood work done before you start and then retest after a few months of making changes. See what happens.
Like, we can be our own scientists.
The important thing is to be curious, to be willing to experiment. It's a journey of self-discovery, and what works for one person might not work for another.
So it's not about finding that perfect diet. It's about finding what works best for you, your body, your lifestyle. And that might take a little trial and error, listening to your body, and maybe getting some guidance from your doctor or a nutritionist.
Totally. It's a process.
Well, I think that about wraps up our avocado deep dive. I know I'm feeling inspired to go make a big avocado salad right now.
Me too.
But before we go, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us. This has been such a fascinating conversation.
The pleasure was mine.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this avocado adventure. We hope you learned something new and feel inspired to explore the fascinating world of food and how it impacts your health. Remember, you are the expert on your own body. Listen to it, experiment, and enjoy the journey.